away now, and there we go. So, are you recording? I'm recording.
Yes.
Yes. So, hello, Beck.
Hello.
This has been a journey in the making, hasn't it? We've tried to schedule once before already, and now we've finally got here. But we were going to blame Mercury retrograde for that.
Yeah. That's my stance. I'm gonna blame Mercury retrograde for everything.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. We're going to put this video on our channels on YouTube. So, should we do our introductions? So, do you want to tell people about you, and then I'll tell people about me, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Rebecca Jaffe. I'm also known as Akashic Beck, and I'm an Akashic Records reader, as my name implies. But I'm also a numerologist, an SCHH practitioner, and a Reiki healer.
Boom.
All the things.
All the things. All the things. So yeah, I'm Ian Robinson, and I'm based in the UK. You're in Mississippi, aren't you?
Yes. So I actually live just outside of Memphis, Tennessee. That's where I was born and raised. And we just crossed the state line and we live just right there at the top of Mississippi.
Wow, that must be like the energy that I'll get back to that in a second. Yeah,
Sure.
so so I'm based in the UK, and I'm a Reiki master teacher. And that is me, and I delve in all things to do with crystals and intuitive stuff, sounds, singing bowls, lots of wonderful things. And I dip in and out of other things as well, which we're going to talk about today. To do with numerology and Reiki and Akashic stuff and what have you. Because I have had a couple of Akashic readings in the past as well, which have kind of like just like blown my mind. And you think that you're open-minded, and then you have an Akashic reading, and you're just like, what? Okay, right. That's just like a whole other level.
Basically, yes. It is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, but what I was going to say there, the energy in Memphis must be like, it must be quite unreal, because that's it's down in the south, isn't it, where a lot of the African slaves came across, wasn't it? And a lot of them did, was it like voodoo or hoodoo or whatever they did or whatever they brought across? So
that was more so in south of here, so like Louisiana.
right.
Yeah, that was more concentrated in New Orleans.
Yeah.
Than it was here. So, but here, there's definitely, unfortunately, still this air. There was a lot of racial disparity, racism. If you're familiar with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was actually assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee,
Yeah.
and it just seems like ever since then there's just been this density, like almost like a cloud over this area. And of course the South, carries a lot of negative stereotype because of that. But I just encourage people to realize that it's not people as a whole, like focus on the individual, because not everybody is that way. So we're still trying to dismantle that whole, those seeds from the past, like unsowing them and replanting new seeds of, love and acceptance. And Memphis is a very diverse city. There's a lot of culture. There's a lot of things that are good, are bringing people together, building people up. But I would say just energetically, there is this heaviness, this density, this oppression, if you will, that kind of hangs over this area. And so that's why I love, working within the community, bringing people together to kind of dispel those energies.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the amazing things that I suppose came out of Memphis, really, and the deep South. I mean, I love blues music, and I love all that sort of thing. So like Memphis, Tennessee. I mean, I've been to Tennessee, so I've been to Nashville, with Music City and what have you. Absolutely love that. I would love to be able to get to like Memphis. I go a little bit further south, but yeah. I mean that for me is one of the shining glories of what came out of such darkness, that brought all this wonderful music of
Yes.
people basically singing singing their souls out, singing what they were feeling, and it really
Yes.
brings a lot of, and I often talk about it in some of my videos on my channel about blues music, and a lot of people think of it as being quite negative and quite heavy and what have you, but in actual fact, it's very healing, that music, especially if you're actually like singing it and feeling it and going through the motions of it. You actually,
Mhm.
I feel, because I play guitar as well, so when I play guitar and I sing blues music, I actually feel some of this stuff lifting off, when you're expelling it with the voice and with the sound and with the feeling of the music. And if you get that deeply into it, it almost feels like it really does feel kind of healing. And it's almost like I suppose it feels quite ritualistic as well, the level of healing that's with it. It's really, really powerful. So
Yes.
yeah, but that for me is kind of like one of the gems of America and of the South is that music. So God
Yes.
bless you guys for keeping that alive over there.
Yes, yes, blues music has such a rich history and heritage, and you're right. I mean, people were singing what they knew, and it was like coming just from the depths of their soul. So, and it was probably like a good release, because they probably felt like they couldn't change their circumstances, and so they were just like singing what they knew and just embodying that, that came from a real place. It wasn't like some kind of manufactured pop song or something like that.
Yeah, it was real nuts and bolts, like really old style, blood, guts, the sweat,
Yeah,
thrown into it. So, yeah,
absolutely.
really, really magical music. And what do you think of the whole Robert Johnson thing? Do you know the Robert Johnson story about him selling his soul to the devil and on the crossroads and what have you?
Hey man, look, that place, I've been there, and the energy there is so potent. I believe that he probably did make a deal with something, and because I mean he skyrocketed after that, but he had a lot of unfortunate events too that
Mm,
followed him around during his life, and yeah, that the energy there, the crossroads, like I feel like um I don't know why it reminds me. Are you familiar with Hecate?
oh, sorry.
Hecate, she's like she's kind of like a goddess of the underworld and things like that. And in studying her, I discovered that she also is like kind of like the goddess of the crossroads, and I always think about her, like kind of like you said, making a deal with the devil,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah, and having like a she's like kind of like a dark goddess, like she also empowers, like she's very empowering and
Mm.
things like that. So but yeah, the energy there at that crossroads, that particular crossroads, very, very potent. You're very like, woo, I don't know if I can, as an empath, I'm like, I don't know if I can stand here for any length of
Not
time.
for too long, especially not in Mercury retrograde either.
No, exactly.
So,
Like, no bueno.
no. So let's talk about Akashic.
Let's
Um,
do it.
Obviously, I've had a couple of readings before. I have talked about it on my channel briefly, but what is the Akashic for anybody that doesn't know?
So the Akashic Records, it's actually a gift from the universe. It's a gift from source for us. And it's basically, the way that I describe it is a metaphysical computer that has everything that has ever happened in the history of ever to anyone. So it embodies and encompasses our past. It has the stories, the laughter, the tears of every man, woman, child, every celestial being, every animal, everything that's ever existed is contained within the Akashic records. Now, it also contains our present moment, and our future, of course, is being created in every moment. So it has what's called, what I see it when I read the records are potential timelines. So it's basically our whole life story bundled into this like energetic field. And I mean, anybody truly can access it, but to have access to that level of knowledge and wisdom, you have to be ready for it.
Yeah, yeah. So do you believe in, I've been asked this a few times and I've given people my answer, but do you believe in, I don't like to use the word fate, but I like to use the word destiny. So do you think there's a destiny to everybody's life? There's a certain goal that people have to get to?
Yes, I absolutely do. So the way that that plays out for me, and what like when I'm reading for someone else, is I see that, okay, yes, this destiny exists. This destiny is what your soul signed up for. And you're going to get there no matter which direction you take. Like that particular event, that particular thing that you created, or whatever the case may be, that relationship, you're going to absolutely meet with it. The way that you get there might be different. It might you have, like I said, you have all these potential timelines that exists, and it maybe, let's say for example, you're meant to be a famous musician. You're talking about guitar, so I'm going to say famous musician. And let's say you chose this one path, and instead of becoming a musician at 20, you become a famous musician at 25. Maybe just a little bit later in a different timeline, that like maybe you would be more ready for it if you were a little bit older and you kind of knew who you were a little bit better. There's a bajillion examples that I could come up with. but yes, there's always like this core destiny, and not everybody is ready for that. They have to sign up for it before they incarnate into that lifetime.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same way as how I describe it. And I describe it as kind of like various strings and various paths that you kind of go down, and you crisscross all these different ways. And there's so many different ways of getting to that end point. But there's so many different ways and different paths that you can take. And it depends on you personally, where you are in life, what you're feeling and what you feel intuitively led to do. But whichever path you choose, if it is the wrong path, ultimately, eventually, you will be pushed back kind of in the right direction. But ultimately, you will get to the place that you're meant to be eventually. Do you think sometimes as well that if when we incarnate back into this life and say our destiny is meant to be, like you say, I don't know, a musician, but that musician doesn't happen in that lifetime, do you think it would happen in the next lifetime or another lifetime?
Absolutely, I do think so. I think that if our soul decides, maybe I'm not ready for this in this lifetime because I have certain lessons that I need to learn first, that they can be redirected and choose, like your soul can, I guess, resign and say, what, I think this is the lifetime where I'll be ready for this.
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it, to think that so many different things as well have to play out, universally speaking, for certain events to happen, and you have to meet these people by chance, for those events to happen, to get you onto that path, to lead you to speak to somebody else, and all these people kind of crisscross into your energy field and into your life. And everybody just thinks, well, it's all just coincidence, or it's just a chance happening. But in actual fact, it's all designed, and it's already agreed and played out.
That's right. It's all curated.
Kind of like what kind of like just it just really kind of blows people's heads off, because to think that outside of the box, you have to be so open-minded, and a lot of people just can't kind of get that. I mean, I've spoke to like mediums and what have you, and I've asked them about Akashic records, and they just don't. I suppose they're maybe not in the right place or whatever, but they just don't understand it and they don't get it, so they can't give their interpretation of what it is. But yeah, they are absolutely amazing gift. And I mean, my last Akashic reading that I had, she said to me, she said, you're able to access the Akashic whenever you want. She said they've handed you a key to be able to do that. So I was like, well, how? how do I do that? She said, well, you can do it in dream, you can do it in meditation, there's various ways you can do it. So I mean, I've tried different ways of doing it, but it's just never seemed to happen. So maybe it's just not my time just yet. But she did say, she said, you've kind of gone quantum. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. I don't take that, but okay, fair enough.
Yes. Well, and you know, when we are in meditation, we do access the quantum field, and that is where the Akasha lies, is within the quantum field. So if you're able to travel through there, which, like I said, I feel like you have to almost be invited to access the records, but it's for everyone. Like, it's a gift for everyone. So, and I feel like personally, there's no right way, there's no right way to access the records. Like, I feel like everybody should access them the way that they see fit. I personally, like, when I read the records, I have like a prayer that I say, that I ask, and because I mean, it is a place of reverence. It's deep reverence. I mean, this was created for us by source, and it's a gift from the universe to us. It's very sacred work, and it's very like, you have to hold that reverence whenever you access the records. But if you were to ask me that question, I would say there's no right way. It's all in how you feel like you should.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's with anybody's journey, isn't it? Really, with development, we all find out.
Absolutely.
So are you a medium? Are you a psychic? Are you a clairvoyant? Or what's your abilities to see? How do you receive the information from the Akashic? Is it clairvoyantly?
Yes. So whenever I read, once I'm in the quantum field, I'm able to connect. I do have psychic abilities. I'm primarily clairaudient, so I hear things first. I guess you could say that's my strongest gift. But I'm also clairvoyant and clairsentient. So a lot of times when I'm reading for somebody, I feel the way that they feel. I feel the way that their guides feel.
Right.
I'm able to communicate with their guides. I am a channel, and I do also have past loved ones who are from this incarnation come through as well. Not every time, but sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, usually when I'm doing healing sessions, because I've just done some videos on my channel about the four main clairs, but predominantly how I work is clairsentient and clairvoyantly. But my clairaudience is starting to fire up as well now, so I'm starting to like hear more.
Very cool.
And it's almost like it feels, when you start to receive the information, it's almost like it's like an energy jigsaw, isn't it? And you haven't like put the pieces together to make up a picture of the message that you need to put forward. And it's still, like, I suppose with anyone, it's still a learning game, and you're constantly developing. But it's and I heard someone say this, and they're so right in what they said, and it's a bit like muscle memory. And if you work the muscle, and then if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So the more you practice, the more you use it, and the more you work with it, the more fluent and fluid it gets, for you to be able to use that. And that's what I'm feeling as well with the healing sessions. Some of the information comes through really, really good, really clear. Other times not so much, but we can't always be on point, I suppose.
Right.
Do you feel that you have to be in a specific way within yourself to do the Akashic readings? Do you have to be on a high vibration? Do you have to feel good, or can you just do it whenever, really?
You know, I really feel like I said, I feel like you don't have to feel good. You don't have to be high vibration in order to access it. It helps. I feel like the messages come in more clearly if you are like you said, and you're 100% correct about, working it like it's a muscle, like, tapping into your gifts. I feel like that's probably the biggest obstacle that people might have when it comes to reading the Akasha, is just focusing on their gift, building their gifts, because that's how the information comes through, is through our gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the telephone line between you and the records. So yeah, I would definitely, I mean, that's something that I tell people when they ask me, is I say, if you really like work on your intuition, and whichever gifts that you feel called to start working on, work on those.
Yeah.
You have, I mean, it truly is a matter of trust. When you start working with your own intuition, we've been conditioned from birth to say, you can't trust yourself, you can't trust anything else, anything inside of yourself. You have to trust everything outside of you. Your ego mind has to be the ruling mind, and allowing yourself to that beauty, that space to tap into your own gifts, that will bring you I feel like that will bring people closer to being able to access the records.
Yeah. So what came first for you then on your journey with what you're doing? Is there anything specific that you started with? Did you start with Reiki or Akashic or the soul center healing hypnosis, and then everything just sort of like started?
How did it open up? Okay, so I'll give you a very short backstory. I started going through my spiritual awakening in 2009, which I did not know that was what was happening because mine started out as a dark night of the soul. So I had a 7-year span of being in this dark night of the soul, and essentially that was allowing me the soul growth necessary to be able to do this work. So I went through all of that. I experienced a lot of painful, traumatic things, which I will not go into, but on the back end of it, like I realize now that was necessary for me. Like I had to go through those things. It definitely put me like in a different mindset. It put me in a different trajectory. And then in, I believe it was the end of 2016, it was almost like floodgates opened. I just started hearing things, seeing things, and I had trickles of it before then, but nothing substantial. You know what I mean? Nothing that I could really grab onto and say, yes, this is what was happening. I didn't know what was happening really. So then in 2016, like my gifts just started coming online, and that's when I first connected with my guides, in that I was aware of. And I was met with my guide Azra. He's actually a lion spirit. So that's how he portrays himself to me. He's part of my animal totem, and he was the one who told me that it was time for me to learn how to access the records. And I'm like, and I'm sitting here in shock, and I'm like, what records? And he's like, the Akashic records. And I'm like, me, like, what, who, me? Are you talking to me? And so I mean, truly my experience at first was strictly led by my guides.
Yeah.
And I was accessing and trusting, what was coming through for me. I knew that the ones I was connecting with were part of me. They were part of my spirit team, part of my guides.
Yeah.
And so but I also did take courses. I love to read. I love to read books anyway, and so I read every book I could get my hands on. Of course, I was already familiar with Edgar Cayce. If no one's familiar with him, he's referred to as the sleeping prophet. He was a medical medium, and he could actually access the records through dream state and heal people with information that came through. So That's why I was in total shock. I was like, I thought only certain people could do this, and it was a total misconception. But yes, it was truly like spirit led at first, and I was just shown and told the steps to take, and they were very patient with me, because at first I was like, I don't know if I could do this, but I'm just going to trust. I'm going to trust the way that I'm being led.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. That's fascinating. I mean, my spiritual awakening was very, very much the same. It was a lot of darkness. It was a lot of depression and anxiety and panic attacks, and not knowing what the hell was going on, and being really, really confused, and lots of supernatural activity going on around me. And I'm thinking I'm cracking up.
Yeah. Oh, I questioned my sanity so many times.
And I was like, this is just absolutely nuts. But then, like you say, it has to happen because and like I've said quite a few times before in the past, you have to kind of like reach a low point before you can go boing and bounce back up again, and come into this sort of new way of being, where basically your soul just kind of like lights up, your energy just fires up, because it says, you know what, I'm not going to live like this anymore. I'm going to live life on my terms. It's my
Right.
This is my energy, and I'm going to make my energy feel as good as possible. And then like you say, all these gifts and things start lighting up, start firing up. I always remember when I was a kid, floating down the stairs, and it was many, many years ago, during a meditation. I actually visualized myself doing that again, and the message I got was, that's astral travel. And I was astral traveling as a child. And then not so long ago, I watched a video, on, it was either YouTube or TikTok or somewhere like that, and Nate says, do you ever remember floating down the stairs when you were a child? And I was just like, yes, I remember. I've just been thinking about this. And then,
You're like, how did you know?
how did it get out of my head? And then she said, you were astral traveling. That's what was happening. And I knew that's what was happening. But when you were in that sort of early age, you just think, well, you're dreaming or whatever. But yeah, have you ever astral traveled?
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Does that happen during Akashic readings?
No,
No?
no. I usually, because I'm awake, I'm conscious whenever I do my readings. I'm in a vulnerable position because I am like tapping into the quantum in real time. So I can't always like take care of stuff. I have my eyes closed. I'm in sort of a meditative state, but I'm able to communicate with my client. But no, astral traveling, I tend to do in my sleep, and I don't typically do it when I'm meditating. I'm usually like deep into sleep, into that brainwave state whenever I'm doing that.
Yeah. Something that I've experienced a few times during either just, it almost feels like you're awake but you're not, and it's like having really, really lucid visions, and it's almost as if I'm somebody else in another part of the world, and I'm like tapping into somebody else's energy, because like the first time it actually happened, I remember seeing like this street, and it was like a really nice looking road, and there was trees going down it, and there was traffic, and there was people walking about. And I remember this guy in sort of like a vest and shorts, and he was just running down the road, just jogging or whatever. And then the next part of the vision, I was kind of like behind the wheel of a car, and I was driving the car, and then I steered and ran into this guy that was running in the road, and then ran him over.
Oh my gosh.
And then I kind of like woke up, and I came out of it, and I was just like,
Whoa.
the hell was that all about? I'm just like, so I was just like, just totally like confused by the whole thing. And then probably a few days later, something similar, it was a similar feeling again, but it wasn't an actual vision of anything as such, but it was like a grid, that I saw in my mind's eye, and it was like a round grid and it was like all these sort of lines and patterns within this grid, and there was a pair of hands that were at this grid, and they were pressing like these pads, and some of the lines in the grid were like lighting up, and then other ones were turning off, and I felt that those hands were mine. It's somewhere else, and I was lighting, and I'm guessing it was some sort of light activation code or something like that was going on. And but I was seeing it in my mind's eye, and then eventually I kind of like came out of it, and I woke up, and I was just like trying to think about what all that, and I'm just like, what is that? And then later on, like probably weeks later, I realized it's activation code, it's language, it's messages from the universe that are coming through for me to receive, although I might not consciously understand what they are or what they mean, but my soul understands what it is and receives that information to my soul. So I'm guessing that's just part and parcel of this crazy process.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, it's like we're on level 12 now, and this is what's gonna happen. You get to the light activation portal. Yeah, it's fine. It's normal. Yeah. Our guides probably like roll their eyes at it. They're like, oh my God.
But they are so dense. Hey God.
I apologize to my guides sometimes. I'm like, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry I didn't get that. Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, truly my guides, your guides are your best friends. My guides are my best friends. They are our allies. Like they really do have our backs,
Yeah, absolutely. How did you first encounter, was it the lion? Was that your first guy that you encountered? How did you see the lion? Was it visually? Was it clairvoyantly, or did you just have a feeling? Or
so I could sense him first before he ever appeared to me. So back, like I said, in 2016, and I love telling this story because it's kind of funny. But basically, I was asleep. I was getting ready to go to bed, and I'm married. I have at the time my son, was, I think he was about 5 years old or 4 years. Anyway, I just put him to bed, and then my husband was asleep, and I got in the bed, and I was trying to go to sleep, and I kept hearing my name. It's like, Becca, Rebecca. And I was like, and I sat, and I thought it was my husband, and I was like, what? And I'm like, I'm trying to go to sleep. What do you want? Anyways, and he's like, oh, what? I don't know. He was asleep. He was passed out. Like, it was not him. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I just heard something. And then every night for a whole week, I kept hearing my name as I was trying to go to sleep. It's like getting louder and louder each night. It was like, Rebecca, Becca, Rebecca, and I'm like,
it's going, oh, for goodness.
So yeah, so I totally related when you were like, I thought I was losing my mind, because that's where I was at. So then I finally I sat up in the bed one night, and I was like, I don't know who is talking to me or what you want, but I'm listening, but I could feel his energy around me, weeks, months before that. I just didn't know what it was. I felt like almost like somebody was following me around. I felt like, somebody was like looking at me, and there were some strange things happening. Like, I remember walking down the street, and then like this paper flew in front of my feet, and I picked it up, and it had my name on it, but it was like somebody else's name, but it said like Rebecca something. And I was like, well, that's weird, and I didn't think about it at the time, but I was like, they were trying to talk to me, So after that happened, I was told, I could hear him, and I heard, you need to go into meditation. And I said, okay. So I'm like, I'm not good at meditating, and this is going to take a while. So one day I took my child to school. My husband was at work. I had the whole house to myself. So I was like, okay, we're going to meditate. So I tried to meditate, and I just wasn't really getting anywhere. And the voice said, keep going. And I was like, okay. Well, anyways, long story short, I finally, after several weeks, I started getting better at meditating. And that's when I saw him. I was able to actually see him visually, like he was standing, like the way I'm seeing you right now. I was able to see him. And I felt his energy, I felt his presence, and he was just so mighty and powerful. And he's like, basically like, okay, good, now I've got your attention and I can communicate with you now. And it just went from there. But Azra was the one who came through to me first, and deeply connected with me. And I guess maybe he knew like I would notice, because he had such just a massive, powerful energy around him.
Yeah. It's absolutely something else when you come into contact with your guides, isn't it? That feeling of, I know when after I'd done my level 1 Reiki, I was going through my 21-day cleansing cycle, and it was so far through that, and I was doing like a healing session, and then I went into a meditation, and a few days prior to that, I kept hearing this name. No, sorry, I kept hearing this word over and over again, and it was Hyoka, 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 and I was just like, what the hell is this? And so I'd said, look, if this is someone trying to connect to me, can you put it into something that I can see and understand, please? So then the next day I went onto my YouTube feed, and the first video that came up was a video about Hyoka. So I was like, okay, I'll watch this video. Watched the video and found out it's about Native American empathic, from Native American times, from the tribes, and they were like very kind of master empaths or whatever of what they do. And I was like, okay, so that kind of gives me an idea. So I then said out loud, is this you? And I got this kind of rush of energy through me, and I was just like, right, okay, that's a yes. So all right, that's that cleared up. We'll move on. Then a couple of days later, I started getting the name, and I kept hearing Khalees, Khalees, Khalees. And I'm like, what the hell? Who's Khalees? So then I'd said, is this your name? And I had this rush again of this energy, and I was like, wow, this is like a totally different feeling. And so I'd said, is this you? Are you the Hyokan, and is this your name? And if so, can you let me feel it? And this was during I think it was like kind of during and then after a meditation, and I just felt this overwhelming feeling of power, of love, of bliss, of peace, just sort of like just wash all over me and back up. And I was just like, oh, I've never felt anything as powerful as that again. That was just absolutely amazing, just this divine energy that washed through me. And I just thank you, Elise. Like, now I know who you are. You know, it was absolutely beautiful. But during my actual attunements on level 1, I was made aware of 2 animal spirit guides. One was a wolf and one was an eagle. So for me, really, to get them, that was kind of an indication that there was a Native American feel there as well. So that's what I think. That's why this the Hyoka, that sort of thing started coming in after that. Then I found out there's another Native American, and also what you would class as kind of a Buddha type figure as well, that's connected to me as well. And that's the only ones that I know of currently. But through one of my soul center healing sessions, I found that, you know, I have anything between 8, I think it's 8 and 15 different guides, and they all pop in and out at different times. So it's an and having them sessions has been absolutely like amazing. Soul center healing.
Yes, incredible, powerful, potent healing sessions. Absolutely.
Very much so, very much so. And I think they will help a lot of people as well. I think if you're going to have that sort of thing, you're probably already on that path. Or even if you want to discover some form of healing, then you probably are on some sort of spiritual journey anyway.
Yes.
If you're not, and you do go on that, then it's going to start opening things up for you to be aware of, definitely. So how long have you done the SCHH?
So I graduated from the March 2022 class.
Right. That's this year. That's this year.
Yes. Yes. So when I first heard, so I've been following Laura for years. I found her YouTube channel and I was just like obsessed with everything that she said. I became a fan, very quickly. And when she started talking about SCHH, I really wanted to sign up like when it first began, but at the time, I believe it was at the beginning of 2021 is when she opened it. My business was taking off. I was so busy. I didn't have time to sign up for it. And finally this year, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I really want to do this. I felt called. My guides were like, go for it. So I was like, okay. So I did.
Yeah. Oh, fab. Fab. It really is like, it really is an absolutely beautiful healing modality. And you just, at the end of each session, I mean, I know I've had 2 sessions, but 3 sessions now. My first one was with Karen Stamper. My second one was with Tony from Ropes and Wings, and my third one I've just had a couple of weeks ago with Shannon Gardner, and they were all absolutely amazing, really beautiful sessions. But I never really remember much of the actual session. When they ask me about certain things afterwards, I'm just like, not really, like maybe vaguely remember little bits. But then when I watch the videos back, I'm just like, this is like crazy. Where's all this?
No, it's a trip. It's a trip.
From?
That is so funny. Yes. And they are all very powerful light workers. Absolutely adore them.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely, and it's a great family as well. I mean, I've got to know them through, because I put like kind of feelers out in a Telegram chat and asked in various groups, anyone that wants to connect and do maybe a few podcasts on my channel, talk about the different healing modalities or whatever. And then so Karen was one of the first that got in touch, and then a couple of other SCHH practitioners and other practitioners as well that do different things. It was really, really good to kind of connect to all these different people. And that's why I like doing this, and speaking to like the likes of yourself and people that do so many other different things, because once you start opening up and delving into it, you want to learn more and more and find out so much more information.
Yes. And it's almost like sometimes your curiosity is insatiable, because once you find out one thing, you're like, oh man, and then you start going down all these rabbit holes and you're like, I'm in it now. I'm in
it. So like numerology, obviously I know you do numerology. So do you want to talk about that? Explain what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. So numerology, it's more than just the study of numbers, right? It's the study of how numbers interact with each other. It's the patterns, the cycles, and the energetic signatures of numbers. We were talking, before we started our chat about how numbers are the language of the universe, and I truly believe that. But numerology was created by Pythagoras, so you may or may not have heard of him. But I love the story because I was like, that was so in line with the way that I am. He opened up a school for anybody who wanted to learn. It didn't matter your class, how much money you had. The school was free. Anybody could come. It doesn't matter your gender. Nothing mattered. As long as you wanted to learn, you had to stay committed to learn numerology. That was the only requirement. So but it was deeply fascinating. And I started learning about numerology when I was, oh my gosh, I think I was 18 when I started learning about numerology. And and I just picked up on stuff here and there. I didn't really delve into it till I was about 20 or 21.
Yeah, because it really is deep, isn't it? It's really deep stuff. And is there a connection between numerology and astrology? Do they tie in together somehow?
Yeah. Oh, I mean, they absolutely do. So, numerology is kind of, and astrology both are seen as like tools of prediction, and the way that I look at it is they kind of give you like a sense of what the energy is like rather than predict things. So they absolutely, and it's so funny because I do a mid-month vibe check with my dear friend Ashley, and we talk about how the astrology and the numerology line up together. If you're familiar with astrology, there's houses. This perfect example, there's houses, and the signs move around and the planets move around the houses, right? And each of those numbers, 1 through 12, they all have those numbers have a meaning as well. And it's funny how the meaning of the house lines up with numerology. It's all deeply fascinating stuff.
Yeah, because I know I saw one of your lives on Instagram, and I popped on and I'd asked on there, what's the best way to start off learning about astrology, and the lady that you were talking to, she'd said about getting a book. And I do already have a book on astrology, but it was about like your rising sign or your rising sun or something like that. So I did read it, and I did find it really, really interesting, but I also felt kind of like lost as well. It
Right.
didn't really sort of like give any sort of definitive thing, but maybe that's the whole point. Maybe there isn't a definitive thing.
Right. Well, I mean, I know enough about astrology to be dangerous, but I am not a connoisseur of astrology. When you start talking about the transits and this is opposition of this, like I get totally lost. That's where my Achilles heel is on that. But just like understanding each, what I did was I learned each sign first, like what they embody, what they mean. And then I was able to learn, about the houses. That was very helpful. And like I said, I'm still trying to grasp the transits. It's like, well, how do you know
Yeah.
that means that? Like there's so much to memorize. And but anyways, yes, astrology is very complex, but it is so incredibly powerful and very absolutely fascinating modality for sure.
Yeah. I know I'd said before we came on that a friend of mine, she'd done like a numerology and astrology chart. So I gave a little bit of information for her to do whatever it is that she did. And the information that came back, I was just like, wow, that is me all over. That is me.
Yeah.
I was like, so there is definitely some,
Spot on.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not like it's not the stuff that you read in the newspaper, is it? It's not like the
Mm-mm.
no, it's nothing like that. It's totally
No,
different, because I know as soon as you mention astrology to people, they just think of that in newspapers. But yeah, it's something so different.
it's so different. And honestly, astrology and numerology has helped me to understand like myself and other people. That was the main reason why I got into it. And of course, I have a lot of Libra in my chart. I'm very like relationship focused and oriented, and so I love to, that's why I love to get to know people. I love to understand them. And um but yeah, I mean, it's deeply fascinating, and it's a life's work. I feel like
Yeah.
your study's never really done, at the end of the day.
No, I can imagine it would just be like it would be continuous, but I suppose like it's like anything, isn't it? That we delve in, it's especially of a spiritual nature. It's just continuous. It's continuous learning, continuous development, and it never really ends. It never really. I wonder if when you go into like the next life and you reincarnate, although that they do say that you kind of like wipe clean, you forget everything that you had experienced in the previous life. Do you think in the next life you will still be leveling up from your previous life? So if I don't know, if you developed, you might have developed maybe a couple of spiritual gifts and you get really into something and whatever, and then in your next life, do you think that would be like an add-on to that, or do you think it could just be something totally different?
You know, I guess I've never really thought about that, but the trend that I've seen is that people get on this particular trajectory in a certain life, and they do want to build upon their gifts and build upon their understanding of things, and something oftentimes happens and it kind of throws them off course and they block it, like some kind of like trauma. Like, for example, one of the things that I've been talking about this year is the witch wound. How people, I mean, even if you don't identify as a witch in this life, you've been considered one in a past life, and people have tried to shut off your gifts, shut you down, keep you from practicing and things like that. And there's a madrid of ways that they do this, but in essence, like, you're shutting off your magic. You're disconnecting yourself from your gifts, and your gifts don't go anywhere. They're just not being utilized. And so it's up to us. It's a personal decision that we make to want to access those again. I feel like there's always an opportunity in every lifetime to have that. And whether we take it or not is up to us, because we have free will.
And do you think that's what part of a spiritual awakening is about then?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like going back online.
Exactly. Yeah. Reawakening to the essence of who we are.
Yeah. Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we've chatted for, well, nearly an hour. It only feels like 10 minutes. But it's been wonderful to finally meet you, Beck.
Yes, you too.
We need to connect again in the future and chat again, because I think there's just so much more to talk
so much.
kind of like skirted the surface, really. But yeah, it's been fascinating, and it's been wonderful to finally meet you and delve into that amazing mind of yours of so much knowledge and information.
No, thank you. Yeah, I mean, these conversations just light me up. I absolutely love to talk about all the things. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
No, and thank you for having me as well. But yeah,
Totally.
we'll definitely chat again soon.
Yes.
We'll end this here. But yeah, until the next time.
Yes. Until next time.
Namaste.
Thank you, Ian.
Thank you to everybody that's watched as well. And let's close that off. And yeah, who can people find you on YouTube? You've got a YouTube channel, haven't you?
I do. So everything is under Akashic Beck.
Akashic Beck.
Yes. So my website is akashicbeck.com. On Instagram, I'm Akashic_Beck, and on YouTube, I'm Akashic Beck. I also have a podcast called Soul Prince.
Right, fab.
Yes.
I'll find them, and what I'll do is I'll link everything below in my descriptions box, and then you can do the same for me, and I'll send you links over for my website and things like that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, okie dokie. Right, thank you very much. Take care.
All right. Thank you, Ian. You too. Bye-bye.